I discovered the terrifying secrets of my neighbors. Their dark pasts haunt us all. I never should have opened that door. The creaking sound echoed in my head like a warning bell, but I was too curious to turn back. It was just a simple door, right? A door that led into the cavernous shadows of my neighbor's home. I was on my usual route, a daily stroll where the sun warmed my skin and laughter drifted along the streets. But today, my routine was shattered. The sun was sinking. Shadows stretched across the sidewalk, growing longer and darker. A chill crept in, wrapping around me like a sinister hug. As I approached the door, I felt it whispers of the past curling around the edges of my mind. Strange noises echoed from within. Footsteps. Laughter. Or was it something else? My heart raced that I pushed the door slowly. It groaned in protest. The air rushed out, cold and stale, smelling of damp and decay. My throat tightened. I stepped inside. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like tattered curtains. Dust motes danced in the dim light, swirling around me. It felt alive. Suddenly, there was a loud bang from the back of the house. I jumped, my pulse pounding in my ears. The silence that followed was deafening. I held my breath. A chill swept through the room, making my skin prickle. Was that a figure in the corner? No, just shadows, I told myself. Just the remnants of light playing tricks, but the feeling remained. I wasn't alone. Objects shifted as if the house breathed around me. A floorboard creaked, and my chest tightened. I wanted to call out, to scream, but my voice got caught in my throat. Fear had frozen me. Then, I saw a shadow moving, darker than the surrounding darkness. It slipped through the hallway, just a flicker. I squinted. My heart raced faster. I could feel the cold sweat on my neck, creeping down my spine. The whispering resumed, louder now, urgent and ominous. My breath quickened. I was terrified. Then a loud crash rattled the walls. The figure was closer, lurking in the corner of my eye. My heart threatened to burst from my chest. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. Panic surged within me. A scream clawed at my throat that I was not prepared for this, for whatever lurked in the shadows of my neighbor's past. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The echo of the door slamming filled the air, reverberating in my ears like an ominous echo from the grave. The shadows inside the house thickened, pulling in around me like an inescapable fog. I was suffocating, not just from fear but from the weight of a presence, something ancient and vile. I could feel it watching me. Before I could gather my wits, a low whisper slithered through the air, soft yet seething with malice. Help us! It was a chorus of voices, drifting and intertwining like ghostly strands. Were they calling for aid or warning me away? I hesitated, caught between the instinct to flee and an inexplicable compulsion to move deeper into the darkness. I forced myself to breathe, to push down the panic clawing at my insides. The only light came from a flickering bulb overhead, casting frantic shadows that danced upon the walls. The whispers grew louder, frantic now, rising like a tide threatening to drown me. Find us before it's too late. As if summoned by their words, the air turned frigid. I stumbled backward, feeling disoriented. My hand brushed against something sharp, a jagged edge on the wall. A picture frame, shattered, with fragments of the glass shimmering like teeth under the weak light. I crouched down, fear and curiosity warring within me. What had happened here? What secrets lay hidden behind this tarnished reality? I glanced back, expecting to see the door wide open, me escape, a beacon of safety. Instead, it stood solid, impenetrable, as if the house had actively conspired against me. The whispers did not relent, twisting and turning around me, entangled with sorrow and desperation. Each word seemed to resonate with my bones, filling my mind with visions, flickering images of a family torn apart, their faces contorted with anguish under a moonless sky. A flash of movement caught my eye. It was there again, the shadow, flickering through the hallway. I felt my heart stutter, the urgency overwhelming. I couldn't stay here, I couldn't. I turned to retrace my steps, only to be met with the sudden appearance of a dark figure blocking my path. It was featureless, but I could feel its eyes boring into me, hollow and eternal. Terror ripped through me like ice water. "You shouldn't be here," it whispered, the voice chilling my very soul. The walls echoed with its words, and the very fabric of the house creaked in alarm, like it was alive and warning me of an impending doom. Desperate, I lunged toward the dark mass, only to find the ground giving way beneath my feet. I fell, tumbling into an unseen pit. Scrabbling to find purchase, I caught only the jagged edges of stone before landing in a disorienting darkness. The whispers dulled for a fraction of a second, and in that eerie silence, I thought I heard a distant wailing, a child's cry blended with the sound of crumbling stone, echoing from below. Gritting my teeth, I pulled myself up on trembling hands, scanning the shadows for any trace of the figure. It was gone, but the whispers resumed, now frantic and tearing at my sanity. "Save him, save us!" I peered into the dark chasm that surrounded me, the sound of water dripping echoing ominously. My breath hitched, the dread solidifying. I couldn't let it end here. I had to find a way out, or a way to uncover what had been lost. Suddenly, the low whispers broke into shrieks, a cacophony that made my ears throb. The shadows stirred, morphing into shapes of despair, faces twisted in horror, mouths stretched wide in silent screams. Then I felt a cold breath against my neck. Gasping, I turned and met the gaze of a pale figure, thin and gyre-like, the remnants of a child lost to time. Its eyes held unending sorrow, and I knew then that I was not just trapped in this house, I was ensnared in its story. The child pointed somewhere behind me, and as I turned to look, a bone-chilling realization took hold. A door had appeared in the darkness, untouched and pristine, where no door had been moments before. The whispers crescendoed, enveloping me in a madness of voices, screaming for my choice, the door or the shadows. That I heard a voice cutting through them. All, sharp and commanding. "You must choose, now." The time for hesitation was over. I had a decision to make, and it would either save me or doom me to the horrors lurking just beyond the veil of light. I stepped towards the door, but before I could reach it, the world erupted into chaos. The ground shifted beneath me, and every shadow screamed my name, and then everything went dark. I awoke, gasping for breath in a damp, stifling darkness. My surroundings felt foreign. Soft, cool earth cradled me instead of the wooden floor I had instinctively expected. Panic clawed at my throat as I realized I was buried beneath something. Was it soil? I threw my hands against the underground wall, scraping against rough soil and damp roots, and a surge of adrenaline jolted through my veins. I was truly trapped. Frantic, I clawed at the compact earth, pushing against the unknown weight pressing down on me. Each handful I dislodged sent a chill coursing through my spine as the whispers from the house returned, fainter now but still laced with urgency. Join us, the cacophony crescendoed as if a converging wave sought to pull me into its depths. It was then that I remembered the child, the pale figure with the sorrowful eyes. In the fleeting moments before the darkness claimed me, I had felt their sadness wrapped around my heart. Was this their fate? Buried and forgotten, their restless spirits roaming the earth, crying out for help that would never come. With one last desperate push, I broke through the surface, launching myself into a world dimly lit by moonlight filtering through an arch of gnarled branches. I gasped for air, limbs trembling with exertion as I rolled out onto a patch of overgrown grass. The night felt thick with shadows, almost sentient, as if they were swirling and watching me. I could hardly comprehend if I was alive or if I had crossed into the realm of the dead. The silence enveloped me like a shroud, broken only by the rustling leaves above. Each sound felt amplified in the stifling air, and when I dared glance around, I soon found there was no familiar path to the door I had sought. I stood amid a graveyard, a hidden one, overgrown and abandoned. Tombstones jutted from the earth, their names worn away by time and sorrow. I felt a chill ripple through me as I read the faded inscription on 1-inch beloved son, taken too soon. The whispers resurfaced, seemingly emanating from the very ground itself. We are forgotten, help us. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It stretched up from the depths of the graves, its face obscured but eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. You've awakened us, it rasped, each syllable echoing like soft thunder. We can help you, but first, you must listen. That a wave of weariness washed over me, and I instinctively took a step back, heart racing as the figure drifted closer. They want vengeance, they want to be freed. A pulsing energy flooded the air, heavy with despair. I could feel other shapes manifesting amongst the tombstones, spectral figures with hollow eyes and mouths that moved in silent screams. Each one beckoned to me, hands outstretched, their desires mingled with anguish far beyond comprehension. I thought of the child, their sorrow reflected in their haunting stares. Who do I trust? I whispered, the weight of their collective despair pressing down on me. Trust? There is no trust in death, the figure replied, a hint of mockery twisting its voice. Only a choice. We offer you a bargain, help us and learn your neighbor's darkest secrets, perhaps even escape this cursed place. But beware, the deeper you delve, the more you risk awakening what is best left buried. My pulse raced as dread pooled in my stomach. I recognized the name of a neighbor woman whose laughter carried down the streets, but whose house sat darkened, cloaked in mystery like a phantom itself. She had lived there for many years, but whispers surrounded her family, spun tightly like a spider's web, ensnaring reputations long forgotten. Help you how? I asked, my voice barely breaking through the suffocating atmosphere. Find the heart of the darkness, a relic, the figure hissed, moving toward a stone slab, half hidden beneath foliage. The secrets, they trail behind those who live, haunted by deeds unspoken. If you seek them, you'll be led deeper into your neighbor's past just as they have been drawn to you. I understood then that this place was not simply a graveyard. It was a threshold between my waking world and the horrors that lay underneath, connected to every shadowed house in the neighborhood. A part of me wanted to run into the night, seeking the light beyond, but that part wrestled against an insatiable curiosity, rich and ripe. The figure loomed closer, breath cold on my face. Choose wisely. Open the door to your neighbor's truths or remain buried forever. Before I could respond, a great wind swept through the graveyard, swirling leaves around me like a tempest. The specters around me howled, and as they did, the grip of the shadows tightened, ensnaring me. The air crackled with energy, the darkness roared, and just beyond the veil, I sensed the heartbeat of something ancient, something alive. Dread surged through me as I felt the ground tremble beneath my feet. Then, from amidst the screaming wind, a voice broke free from the chaos, booming as if it had no source. Join us in our past or perish in your ignorance. I stumbled backward, fear gripping my heart. A chilling whisper flickered through my mind, breathing ominous words, you must decide who lives and who dies. And before I could comprehend, I felt the earth split beneath me again, and shadows surged around me, fate hanging in the balance, desperately twisting as everything fell into darkness once more. I teetered on the precipice of the void, gazing into the abyss that had yawned wide beneath me. The ground beneath my feet pulsed like a living thing, as if it were offering me not just a choice, but a final invitation to descend into madness. My heart thundered in my chest, beating out an urgent warning against the horrors that beckoned from within. Join us, they echoed, those lost souls, layering their voices into an eerie symphony of dread. You will uncover their secrets. We are bound by blood and sin. Instinct urged me to retreat, but that relentless curiosity pulled me forward, a cruel tether that threatened to snap my very sanity. I felt, deep down, that I wasn't just standing in a graveyard. This was a gateway, a nexus encased in tragedy, a scar that ran through my neighborhood's heart. Shadows danced and twisted, morphing into ghastly shapes as they beckoned me closer. My gaze swept to the figure before me, its presence an amalgamation of sorrow and malice. What do you need from me? I breathed, the air thick and clammy against my skin. Retrieve the relic, it hissed, luminous eyes boring into my own. It is hidden in plain sight. The talisman of protection plucked from the heart of death itself. Only then can we awaken the truth. Sinking to my knees, I pressed my palms into the soil, feeling the pulse of a hidden power beneath my fingers. Where? I croaked. Where do I find this relic? It resides where light and dark converge, the figure replied cryptically, receding into the shadows. The one who laughs the loudest holds the key to your Sircha gentle facade shrouding a violent heart. Before I could process its words, the wind intensified around me, creating a vortex of swirling leaves that cocooned my ephemeral connection to the spectral world. I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding so loudly I feared it would burst. With clouds racing overhead and the air pressing down like an oppressive weight, I rushed back toward the estate that had drawn me into its eerie web. The once comforting allure of my neighbor's laughter echoed in my mind, but now it twisted into something sinister. It was a riddle veiled in mirth, and I had the sinking feeling that every giggle hid the truth of vast, unrepentant darkness. As I reached the doorstep, shadows writhed at the edges of my periphery, relentless in their pursuit. The air buzzed with a tension I could taste, metallic and bitter. I knocked on the door, only for it to swing open creakingly, as if it awaited my arrival with dreadful anticipation. Inside, the air felt stale, choked with secrets. I hesitated at the threshold, a deceptive calm cloaking the room. It was impeccably arranged, every knick-knack on display whispering of everyday normalcy, little porcelain figures, cozy throw blankets, bright paintings. But beneath the facade, a chill clung like a fog, threading through the very floorboards. Hello? I called, each syllable tentative as if shattering the silence would summon the unknown. A voice, warm yet shadowed, floated down the hall. Just a moment, dear. I hesitated, heart racing as I stepped deeper inside. It's me, your neighbor. I need. Oh, darling, there's always a need, isn't there? She interjected, her laughter wrapping around me like a vice. A figure emerged from the shadows, her face obscured by a cascade of dark hair. What do you seek? Before I could answer, I caught a glimpse of something glimmering behind her, a glass display case, reflecting the faintest light. Within it lay an intricate locket, its surface shimmering ominously, ancient symbols etched into its metal. That. I blurted, heart racing. The locket. I need. She mused, stepping forward. The darkness curled around her like a shroud. I wonder what that word means to you. Her sudden shift brought an icy sense of realization. The laughter, the pristine facadite, all felt like a fragile veil drawn over something insidiously deeper. You hold the key to your neighbor's past, I heard the whispers say, echoing in the recesses of my mind as her demeanor shifted, revealing the predator beneath the mask. Suddenly, the air vibrated with a sinister energy, the shadows creeping closer as the room seemed to swallow light. The relic is only a beginning, dear. Her eyes glinted dangerously. But it demands a sacrifice. My body froze, caught between the urge to flee and the call of the locket. What kind of sacrifice? In that instant, I felt a chill creeping up my spine, the sensation of being watched, the pricking of countless hollow eyes observing my every move, as the ghosts of the graveyard writhed in agitation at my choices. I needed to know. Yet darkness seemed to descend, wrapping around my heart like iron chains. Everything had narrowed to a single point, and as I faced the consequences of my choices, I realized, what wouldn't I sacrifice to confront the truth? But before I could answer her question, the thundering beat of the heavens sounded above, and the ground rumbled beneath our feet again. The walls trembled, a cacophony of whispers rising from the depths of sorrow. I caught one final glimpse of her face twisting into a grotesque smile, and as the spectacle roared to life, I lunged for the locket. Just as I grasped it, the very air exploded with a desperate scream, echoing through the twilight. The world spun violently, and all at once, everything fractured me: reality, my choices, and the mocking laughter that engulfed me. And then, the house itself began to crumble, sucked into an unseen void, with darkness swirling around me. You must decide who lives and who dies now. Came the voice of the figure from the graveyard, and in that moment of chaos, I understood one horrifying truth: I was nothing more than the next link in an ever-widening chain of torment. The locket trembled in my grasp, a reality I had not asked for. My heart pounded in urgency as the ground beneath me fell away once more, spiraling into the abyss. As I fell, consciousness fraying, a whisper crept beneath my skin, laced with despair, "Join us in our past or perish with your ignorance." What awaited me in the darkness? Would I be consumed by the shadows, or could I confront the secrets tangled in the fabric of my neighbors' lives? And before I could contemplate further, the ground ceased to exist, and I plummeted into a chasm that promised both peril and the chance to uncover the terrifying truths yet to be revealed. I tumbled into a void that felt both infinite and suffocating, where the rush of air pressed against my body like 1,000 unseen hands, constricting my breath. The abyss whispered in a voice that seemed to belong to the very darkness itself, each syllable slithering into my mind, infusing me with dread. "You seek answers, but answers come at a price." I hit the ground with a bone-jarring thud, the impact sending shockwaves through my limbs. A landscape materialized around me, hazy and spectral, shadows coiling and writhing as they danced in the dim light of an unidentifiable source. I found myself on what appeared to be the remnants of an old street, though it was distorted, out of place, and infested with unsettling memories. Specters floated past a parade of faces, their expressions twisted in agony, staring at me with accusing eyes. Heart pounding, I stumbled to my feet, my surroundings morphing in a blur of blood and memories. The street was alive with the moans of the damned, their grief heavy in the air. I recognized snippets of my neighbors as they passed, wretched embodiments of the joy they had once radiated, now captured in a perpetual wail, shackled to their sins. I caught the glimpse of a familiar face, the old man from 2 doors down, his cheeks hollow and his eyes sunken, eternally replaying the moment of despair when he lost his wife to tragedy. Panic set in, intertwining with guilt as I recalled the cryptic whisper from the graveyard. "The one who laughs the loudest holds the key," rang in my head like a relentless drumbeat. This was the manifestation of those lives intertwined, and I was an unwilling observer in their macabre theater. But where was the locket? I felt its weight in my pocket, a pulse thrumming in syncopation with the hearts of the lost around me. Suddenly, a guttural laughter erupted from behind me, shrill and manic. I turned to find myself facing a figure cloaked in shadows, a grotesque parody of mirth that twisted and morphed as if it fed off the pain surrounding it. "You've stepped into their past, dear. You'll need to face every laughter, every secret, to find your precious talisman." The figure's eyes twinkled with a madness that sent a chill down my spine. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice trembling against the carnage of despair that engulfed us. "I just want the locket." "Ah, but what is a locket without its burden?" It hissed, its voice like nails scraping against a chalkboard. "Each life carries a shadow, a secret best left buried. Can you bear the weight, or shall you remain a spectre among specters?" The shadows around us convulsed, reaching out, their fingers brushing against my skin, sending sparks of terror coursing through my veins. I felt an insidious presence slithering deeper into my memory, dredging up evenings spent laughing and conversing with the very souls broken around me. "Free us," a chorus of voices coalesced, swirling around my feet, licking at my ankles like flames. "Free us, and you shall have your relic.no." I cried, recoiling from the torment that clawed for my attention. "You are the ones responsible." The laughter echoed, visceral and dark. "We had no choice. We are bound to this place and to you. Each of your desires sends tendrils deeper into the abyss of our past. As if in response, the ground beneath me trembled violently. I stumbled backward, losing my footing as I was drawn between twisted memories invoking both avarice and sorrow. Faces emerged, gaunt and desperate, begging me to help them as the air thickened, suffocating. I was spiraling into a vortex of pain, drowning in their collective cries, each one more horrific than the last. A chilling realization dawned on me: had unknowingly summoned them, my ignorance and fear feeding their dread. "What do you want me to do?" I pleaded, desperate to escape the tableau of anguish. In response, they surged forth, dragging me into their nightmarish grasp, faces transforming into oozing, grotesque reflections of the life I knew. The walls around me pulsated, squeezing tighter, constricting my mind and body within their shadowy grasp. "You must choose," my sinister counterpart whispered intimately, brushing against my soul as if I were nothing more than a pawn in their game. "Unravel their history, or become a part of it." But remember, sacrificing your ignorance comes at an unimaginable cost. That as I felt the energy of their pain rippling through me, urging me toward inevitable confrontation, the laughter crescendoed, overlapping with the cries of the lost. A single figure stepped close, pressing up against me, a substitute for the unbearable burden I now bore. "Join us," it hissed, a silhouette filled with unfathomable darkness, "or wipe away the veil. Which path will you choose, mortal? Which soul will you condemn?" And as the shadows lunged forward, eager to consume me, I caught a flash of the locket glimmering amidst the chaos, an anchor to the truth. My heart thundered an impossible question: could I save them, or was the cost too high? Then, with a snap that reverberated through time itself, I was engulfed in shadows. The last thing I heard was a single, childish laughter echoing with a malice that consumed my sanity. Just before the darkness swallowed me whole, I glimpsed their twisted forms dragging me to a corner of the pasta place where laughter became madness and a chilling truth clawed at my throat. Perhaps the real horror was yet to be revealed. The world spun as I plunged into an abyss of memories suffused with despair. Twisting shadows clung tightly to my skin, and the laughter that had once seemed harmless transformed into a cacophony of mournful cries. I wanted to scream, to plead for release, but the weight of time wrapped around me, pressing the air from my lungs like a vice. As the shadows coalesced into a narrow alleyway, the familiar echoes of my neighborhood beckoned. The faded facades of houses whispered tales of laughter turned sorrow, but the inhabitants, ghostly remnants of lives long extinguished, now roamed aimlessly, eyes hollow and pleading. I could almost feel their stories clawing at the back of my mind, desperate to break free. Among them was the woman I had once seen watering her flowers, her vibrant blooms wilting into a gray mass, her once lively voice now reduced to a distorted wail. "Help us," she shrieked, the sound grating against my fragile psyche. "Before the laughter consumes us all." I staggered back, clutching my head as wave after wave of memories crashed over me. Very chuckle shared, every fleeting moment of joy that now festered with blame. "What have I done?" I whispered, grappling with the realization that I had willfully ignored their suffering, too consumed by my own trivialities. "Join us." The raspy whispers echoed in concert, an electric charge coursed through the air, as if the collective remorse of my neighbors summoned me into a swirling tempest of guilt. The shadows began to stretch and elongate, twisting their forms into grotesque parodies of the people they had once been. The laughter I remembered morphed into a deafening cacophony, a haunting siren that throbbed painfully in my ears. See the truth. Relive the pain. With a shudder, I turned, running desperately down the alley, but the shadows lunged at me, their hands reaching out, seeking to claim what was left of my sanity. Glancing over my shoulder, I witnessed a girl, once cheerful, her face contorted in a grimace, her laughter now a gurgling wail that pierced through the stale air. "We were never free," she cried out, "don't you understand? We owe our laughter to the darkness." I pressed forward, but my heart thudded in rhythm with their cries. Every step forward seemed a step deeper into the abyss. Memories rushed back, scenes flickering like old film reels, parties that had left echoes of laughter, smiles that had masked sorrows. I stumbled upon the remnants of a block party that had once been vibrant, and now stood shapeless, a gridlock of sinister intensity where distorted faces loomed, caught between the desire for freedom and the chains of ubiquitous despair. No. I screamed, throwing my hands over my ears, trying to block out the anguished wails and futile grips of their shadows. I won't be a part of this. But as I hurled myself toward the light, the only shred of hope against the encroaching darkness, those familiar hands slipped through the air, coiling around my ankles like serpents wrapping their prey. The figures changed, their eyes shimmering with betrayal. "You promised to help us," they chanted, their voices melding into one chilling harmony. "Now you shall pay the price." In that moment, I was yanked across an unseen boundary, colliding with a torrent of memories that weren't my own. Each recollection stung like a brand, illuminating their deepest fears and sorrows, forcing me to live through their tragedies as if they were mine. I wept silent tears, tasting their bitterness on my lips as a darkness threatened to overwhelm my own identity, erasing the lines that separated us. "Why?" I gasped, scrambling to find my footing. "Why do you haunt me?" "Because you are a part of us," the alter ego from earlier sneered with ravenous hunger, its eyes pulsing deep within the silhouettes wrapping around me. You hid in plain sight while we suffered. The moment you laughed while we mourned, you made our pain your own. With a jolt, I felt the locket vibrate at my heart with each pang of sorrow, an insistent rhythm calling me to pay the ultimate price. Monstrous shadows roared, waves crashing. Within the cacophony, pushing against their barriers, trying to breach the past and devour me whole. I faltered as fear gripped me tightly, almost welcoming the shadow's embrace. Then, a hollow laughter erupted surrounding me, echoing louder than the cries for help. A voice sinister and familiar pierced through the chaos, chilling my very soul. You thought you could run? The past doesn't forget its debt. Just as the darkness coiled tighter, something shifted. A mere flicker of light danced behind the curtain of dread, revealing the path I had been too afraid to take. The locket pulsated fiercely, almost desperate, a beacon calling out not just for me but for those lost. My choice had to be made, and then, as the shadows surged toward me, I saw her, a figure draped in white, trapped in the middle, laughter echoing from her very core while her eyes pleaded silently with eternal sadness. The moment tethered time, holding me captive against the looming dread, revealing a truth far more horrifying than I could have imagined: find the laughter within the darkness, or become one with it. The figure cried, just before the last gasp of sanity slipped away, leaving me gasping in the heart of a terrifying revelation. The girl's laughter shattered the immutability of the shadows, and I realized that I was about to become the harbinger of their fate. With that, the shadows leapt, and only the blaring laughter echoed as I stumbled into the unknown. The shadows surged like a tide, weaving themselves into a tapestry of dread that wrapped around me with a suffocating grip. The laughter, a deep, unsettling sound boomed through the alley, mingling with the cries of my neighbors as they surged closer, drawn by their own insatiable hunger and my involuntary tether to their pain. I darted forward, veering left and right, desperate to escape the tangled gloom that encroached with every frantic heartbeat. Each step into the darkness dragged me further down the spectral hallways of my memories. The locket pulsed against my chest like a grotesque heartbeat, its presence both familiar and terrifying, as if it knew secrets I had long forged into the depths of my own being. A sharp jolt thrummed through me. I had not simply witnessed their tragedy as me laughter had been the catalyst for their unhappiness. In some ill-fated way, I had become complicit in their anguish. Find the laughter within the darkness. The figure's haunting timbre echoed again, a ghostly mantra embedded in my skull. But what was the laughter but a reminder of the deaths buried deep in the foundation of my past? I pressed onward, tearing myself away from the shadowy figures circling me, their desperation a palpable force staining the air. As I swam deeper into the gloom, a new shape flickered in my periphery. Another alley, this one tighter, laced with fog and the stench of decay. The ground beneath me shifted, transforming from solid earth to a sticky substance that trapped my feet. I screamed silently as a mass of bone-chilling whispers swirled around me. Familiar flashes of faces momentarily flickered through the fog. A group of children I had grown up with appeared before me, playing games under a setting sun, their laughter drifting like musical notes through the air. But their faces began to slip into mournful visages, twisted by fear and a call to despair. Their laughter turned hollow, echoing softly around me until the air thickened with a suffocating sorrow. "Help us!" they pleaded, their voices amalgamating into a chorus of desolation that clawed at the edges of my sanity. They took us. We were just playing, and then we laughed. As I turned, the shadows of those I had ignored throbbed closer, desperate specters clutching at my clothes, their faces twisted in anguish. I stumbled, caught between the spectral children and the looming figures who dripped with remorse and regret. Their twisted expressions urged me to remember, to recall the boiling laughter that heralded their fall. "Do you see it?" a voice in the shadows hissed, thick with spite. It was like a serpent's whisper, oily and cold. Every chuckle, every smile that cascaded from your lips was a nail in our coffin. You reveled, while we wasted away. Rain began to fall, but it was not water that soaked my skin, it was darkness, a viscous liquid that seeped into my pores, a consuming ink sapping my vitality. I curled into a ball, the shadows ebbing closer. The cries melded into an unholy symphony of despair, wrapping around me like chains forged of sorrow. My fears crystallized within that transient moment, a haunting realization that my own laughter had perpetuated their doom. No. I cried out, thrashing against the ground as a desperate need for redemption surged through me. I want to help you. Just tell me how. But the shadows only laughed, a disembodied cacophony of grief that rattled through the air. It's too late. They taunted. There is no escape now, you have joined us. You're tethered to the laughter and the suffering. With a primal surge, I forced my feet beneath me and darted into the fog, desperate to put distance between me and their wretched gaze. But as I ran, the shifting tendrils of darkness pulsed in rhythm with my breath, closing the distance faster than I could retreat. In the distance, I glimpsed the figure cloaked in white, her laughter pealing through the dense fog like a beacon within my nightmares. Embrace it. She shrieked, her eyes alight with both sorrow and madness. Let the darkness claim all of you. Then, the laughter took form. A figure emerged from within the shadows, a creature contorted by pain and revelry, its body a grotesque parody of friendship melded with loss. A face I recognized, twisted with sorrow yet intricately built with the delicate strands of joy. You believed it would be easy, didn't you? It spoke in a sing-song voice, but the sweetness dripped with the decay of lost hope, a malevolent amalgam of everything I had ever run from. You thought you could outrun the silence. I swerved to the side, heart pumping as the creature's hand shot toward me. In a moment of sheer panic, I seized the locket, feeling its power race through me like multifaceted lightning. A tempest of energy shot through my veins as I bellowed out a desperate cry, I won't be your prisoner. Yet as the shadows converged, enveloping me in their sibilant embrace, reality twisted once more, blurring the line between my identity and the souls of the lost. The laughter crescendoed into an agonizing symphony, spiraling upward into a vortex of sound and fury. Grief, joy, despair merged into a consciousness far greater than my own, and just before the depths swallowed me whole, I realized I was not merely intertwined with their pain, I was their pain. The darkness surged one last time, pulling me into its depths, and then the world fell silent as nothing but an echo of laughter lingered in the void, only to be met by an unforgiving presence looming right behind me, its grating breath raspy and wicked. A new entity had joined the festival of sorrow. Welcome, it whispered coldly, to the other side of laughter. The suffocating silence of the void pressed heavily upon me, a physical entity that sought to suffocate my spirit. I hovered in darkness, suspended between the wretched specters and the unrelenting grip of the entity that had whispered its welcome. The laughter had faded, yet I could feel the pulse of a shared heartbeat echoing within me, a grim communion with the lost souls I had forsaken. Suddenly, the oppressive void began to dissolve, revealing fragments of a familiar world bathed in ghastly light. Shapes writhed in the periphery, elongated forms of those who had slipped through the cracks of reality. Their faces morphed, sometimes familiar, other times warped beyond recognition, each bearing the weight of unconfessed stories, desires, tragedies left to rot in the forgotten corners of their minds. The new presence behind me stirred, its breath rustling against my neck like the caress of skeletal fingers, sending a chill racing through me. You chose to run, it said, sinister delight lacing its words, but fleeing only binds you tighter to their torments. That a flicker of movement drew my eyes, and I turned to see a disheveled figure standing a mere breath away, me next-door neighbor, a once vibrant woman whose laughter had echoed through the walls when the sun was still warm and the days felt innocent. Now, her face twisted into a mask of anguish, one partially obscured by shadow. You don't understand, she whispered, every syllable wrapped in cry. You let us drown in laughter, while you danced on our graves. That I recoiled, something ancient and terrible clawing its way into my throat. I didn't know, her voice crescendoed into a frenzied wail of recognition, you didn't because you were too busy enjoying yourself. The shadows around her writhed in agreement, morphing into figures I finally recognized, Mr. Holloway, the charming old man who encouraged my games as a child, the twins I had laughed with near the swing set, my own sister, whose bright giggle resonated within my skeena bell, tolling with every unfulfilled promise I had abandoned. Each face twisted in sorrow and accusation, their grief a weapon directed toward the heartless core of my being. Face the truth. They screamed in unison, their voices merging into a haunting symphony of shared despair. Your happiness killed us. Each entity surged toward me, stretching fingers like nooses to tighten around my throat. Just as I lost my breath, the darkness roared back, emboldened by their anguish. It wove itself around me, taller and thicker, shrouding me in its unforgiving embrace. This was not their sadness, it was mine, compounded by my fear of their judgment. With a sudden swell of determination, I felt the locket push against my chest, tremors of pulsating light buzzing through my fingertips. I squeezed it fiercely, focusing every ounce of will into the gemstone. It flickered, the echoes of laughter mingling with the spectral barrier between us and the unearthly presence that loomed behind me. Let it out. The old man rasped from the shadows, his voice ragged yet alive with urgency. It must be told, or you will remain shackled forever, tied to our sorrow, entwined in this curse. I summoned the bittersweet memories, shaping a narrative from years of guilt and forgotten joy. The laughter of youth, drifting melodies of shared delight, cascaded forth as I bared my soul, my truth weaving a fragile light through the horrors surrounding me. As it spilled into the air, swirling and mingling into something beautiful yet tragic, the shadows recoiled, hissing with outrage. Stop it. They screeched, thrashing as their forms shrank beneath the brightness of my memories. You cannot unearth what should be forgotten, but I pressed on, calling forth the laughter of my youth, weaving together the bonds of our shared sorrows and joys. Each memory reclaimed a facet of my being, each word pushing the darkness back, a desperate act of reclamation. Suddenly, a deafening howl echoed through the void, shaking the very fabric of my existence. The ground trembled beneath me, fissures opening, exposing a glimpse of blackened skin writhing just beneath the surface. The entity behind me began to shift, its cold breath morphing into a guttural growl that reverberated through my marrow. It's too late, it whispered again, this time laced with fury. You cannot escape what dwells in the heart of joy. The past never dies, it festers along with the laughter you thought you could wield. I froze, recognizing the truth in its savage tone just as the room darkened again. Tendrils of shadow yanked at me, drawing me toward that fragile rift where the pulsing memories still sparked. The whispered laughter returned, echoing in dissonant waves, mingling with the dread that enveloped us all, and then, in the split second before the dread collapsed upon me, I saw a spectral child with hollow eyes staring back at me amidst the shadows. You think you're free? It appealed, a voice delicate yet surreal. You're just awakening the hunger. You brought us laughter, now you must face the price. With a final leap, the entity lunged, fingers outstretched to snatch me into despair. The darkness overflowed, and I screamed me, despair merging with theirs as the shadows closed in for retribution, and the past rushed forth to claim its due. The world fractured into fragments of memory and horror as the darkness engulfed me. Shrieks and wails danced through the air, mingling with guttural whispers that slithered into my ears like venomous serpents. The specter of the child, its eyeless gaze boring into my very soul, seemed to merge with the surrounding shadows, becoming part of a tapestry woven from collective grief. My heart thundered in my chest, every beat a painful reminder of what lingered just out of reach. I had only wanted to reconnect with joy, to escape the agony of my neighbor's remembrance, yet here I was, impaled upon the barbs of my choices. As those clawing tendrils gripped my limbs tighter, I could hear the echoes of laughter twisting into harrowing cries, deepening my sense of dread with each passing moment. Do you think your memories will save you? A figure materialized, its form a grotesque caricature of my sister. Her laughter had once been my comfort, now it taunted me, warping my own guilt into weaponized despair. You're not the only one who remembers that I thrashed against the shadows, gasping as the air thickened, binding me in a web of cold remorse. Stop! I begged, pleading into the void that stared back at me. Glaring faces twisted in grief and rage surrounded me, flickering like incandescent flames soon to extinguish. Their agony wrapped around me, suffocating in its intensity. You took from us without regard. The neighbor's voice pierced through, crystalline and haunting, and now you will face the reckoning of what you've sown. Suddenly, a heated breath rushed over me. Presence behind me grew larger, heavier, looming above like the weight of the sun eclipsed. You wanted to remember? Then remember this, it roared, its voice a dark thunderclap that shook the very walls of my psyche. The shadows around me twisted violently, morphing into something solid yet fluid. They formed into grotesque reflections of my memories. I watched in horror as the smiling faces of my childhood friends morphed into grotesque figures of suffering, blood and ash staining their mouths, and despair seeping through the cracks of their smiles. In that instant, the darkness split apart, and a sickening vision overwhelmed me. I was transported back in time, the vibrant street where laughter once bloomed now warped and tainted by anguish and shadows. My laughter echoed through the darkened Husisa, a mere ghost of the joy I had once cultivated. The playground that had thrummed with life lay deserted, the swings swaying ominously, leading to a hollow abyss. "Save us," the twin boys, slick with shadow, pleaded in whispers that made my skin crawl. "You can't leave us behind." I began, but the moment my voice slipped through, it was drowned by their relentless cries. The entities of the past surged forward, swirling around me relentlessly, forcing me to witness them in their darkest hour, every echo of laughter transformed into a blade that sliced through my reality. Gruesome images flooded my mind, my neighbors, those I adored, lost themselves in the throes of despair, abandoned to the very neglect I had silently perpetuated. The truth was alive, venomous and writhing inside me, sharper than any knife. Just then, a piercing scream ripped through the air. The screams exploded and dispersed the darkness momentarily, pulling the shadows apart like a veil. For a fraction of a heartbeat, I beheld a glimpse of reality, the flickering lights of my neighborhood, the familiar houses wrapped in sinister veils, their secrets begging to be unearthed. Yet this fraction of clarity was a fleeting dagger, unraveling as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind a taut silence that hummed ominously. Shadows tautened within the spiraling darkness, pulsing like a heartbeat, and I realized I stood before a gaping maw of blackness, an abyss threatening to swallow me whole. "You chose happiness over us," the specter of the child warned, its gaze like a piercing light seeking to reveal hidden truths. "You can't escape what you've nourished. What lurks in the shadows will always follow." With a desperate motion, I willed the memories to resurface, to reforge into vibrant light against this consuming dread. I thought of laughter, warmth, and my sister's face, her bright spirit, and I screamed at the pain, hoping to bring forth a flicker of that forgotten joy. The darkness convulsed, thrashing against my will, sensing the breach in its inky fortress. With an anguished roar, all the shadows faltered, their forms writhing in agony, shrieking in a symphonic wail of despair. They lunged toward me, desperately trying to stop the memories from breaking free. Then, to my horror, I realized I had awakened something Warshawn, unseen thing wrapped in the deepest shadow, an entity still anchored in every forgotten sorrow. It began to shake, dislodging the very foundation of reality around us. Do you know what will come now? The darkness rumbled, a chilling promise emerging from the maw of despair. I felt the weight of past sins and regrets descending upon me, a suffocating shroud threatening to pull me under. And then I saw it, an arm emerging from the depths, skeletal and clawed, reaching for me with grotesque determination. The horror of its arrival sent shockwaves through the remnants of laughter, clawing at the tender edges of my sanity as every ounce of me screamed for release, the shadows closing in on the last vestiges of hope, dragging me further into the abyss. And just as I was consumed by the dread that seemed to have no end, I felt a whispering inside my heart, a flicker of light that promised salvation. But was it a trap, or the key to my freedom? The darkness gave way, revealing a vision that would haunt me forever. I was standing in the heart of my neighborhood, yet it felt alien, suffocated beneath the oppressive weight of despair. The houses were still familiar, but they morphed into grotesque caricatures, their windows like hollow eyes staring into an unclouded void. Laughter rang emptily in the streets, twisted echoes of joy transformed into wails, a symphony of sorrow that clamored against my sanity. And the oppressive silence that followed, a shudder raced through me as I sensed its truth lingering like a putrid scent, repugnant yet compelling. I could feel the whispers again, their urgent timbre pulling at the edges of my mind. "Help us, save us," the words unfurled like phantom wings, and I was thrust back into the terrifying realm where memories breathed. Compelled toward the center of darkness, I knew I had to face the heart of this evil, the source of the relentless suffering around me. I stumbled through the once vibrant streets that ignited subtle hints of recognition. Shadows writhed at my feet, creeping toward every corner of this cursed tapestry, reaching for me, yearning for liberation. And then, nestled within that darkness, I saw her, the woman who had laughed the loudest, with the most radiant smile. Her face flickered between joy and horror, encapsulating my dawning understanding entirely. In life, her laughter had drawn me toward comfort, but the moment I closed my eyes to the suffering shadow just beyond the cracks, her fate wound tightly around my own. The realization hit like icy water. The laughter had been a disguise, a portal through which our lives intertwined. As I reached out toward her, the darkness recoiled, latching closer around my throat. "Join us!" a chorus of voices pleaded, each one a desperate echo of familial ties lost, spirits extinguished by neglect. Panic gripped my heart as the foundations trembled beneath my feet, shaking off layers of happiness and unveiling a terrifying truth. Her laughter had been the bait, seducing not just me but each neighbor, entangled in the cyclical horror, leading to the slaughter veiled in mirth. In that moment of clarity, I understood what needed to be done. I turned the locket over in my trembling hands. It throbbed against my chest like a living heart, calling out for a sacrifice to unlock the door buried deep within the remnants of our past. Do you forsake joy to embrace the depths of sorrow? The malevolent presence taunted, emerging with a shroud of darkness that enveloped everything in dread. What will you lose in your pursuit of redemption? With every ounce of strength, I wrested free from the shadows, breaking through to the flickering images of laughter and joy that had once filled these streets. "I will uncover the truth," I screamed, a last stand against the overwhelming tide of despair. As light erupted from the locket, illuminating the phantoms trapped within the folds of darkness, the whispers turned into a cacophony of shrieks. The shadows recoiled, revealing a fractured landscape of memories, faces of neighbors, their laughter morphing into cries for help, each resonating with despair and betrayal. I saw my sister's face, once bright and full of promise, now twisted by darkness as she reached out for me across the void. "You chose laughter while we faded. Now, you must repay the cost and face the agony you ignored," her specter echoed, anguish pooling within her hollow eyes. No. I yelled back, desperation clawing at me. "I will not be defined by fear, by this darkness." The locket flared with energy, summoning torrents of memories that might awaken the binding force tying our fates together, but the abyss loomed larger, its voice thick with venomous glee. "You want escape. You've awakened the hunger that revels in your torment. We will feast." As the shadows lunged, more twisted forms storming forward, the chilling laughter of the once vibrant neighbors blended with my sister's cries, becoming a maelstrom of inscrutable chaos. But within that chaos, I found a flicker of bravery ignited in my heart, a choice: offer my own joy, a sacrificial remnant of the laughter I had shunned. Summoning every shred of will left in me, I screamed my truth into the eyes of darkness: "In your hunger, you will never consume my spirit alive. I choose to remember the laughter and grieve for what has been lost." And with those electrifying words, the locket burst in radiant light, expanding outward in dazzling tendrils, enveloping each tortured face caught in the spiraling grasp of regret. For a single, breathless instant, everything fell silent, and the swirling shadows evaporated into wisps of sorrowful smoke, revealing shattered remnants of light long veiled in darkness. I watched as spirits of neighbors faded before me, unshackled from their burdens into ephemeral wisps, their cries transforming into resonant whispers of peace, except for one, the woman, her laughter still echoing, her ghostly form flickering as the light began to swallow her shadow. "You've set us free, but darkness remains, and it only waits to consume what hides." I stumbled on the crumbling street, clutching the remnants of memory, the shadows inevitably drawing close once more, mingling with despair to forge their cruel bonds. And I understood then, the true horror of our existence. It wasn't that the past was lost, it was that it lingered, waiting for the weakest moments to claw its way back, dragging everyone down into its infinite abyss. As I turned to face the remnants of laughter that still clung to the air like bitter perfume, I was left with haunting clarity. I thought of my neighborhood haunted, joyful, yet inevitably cursed, and how I was forever connected to that lost echo of mirth. Then everything swirled and faded to darkness, and one final thought gripped me, echoing through the void with a smirk tainted by sinister familiarity: the past never truly fades, it simply waits for the right moment to reclaim what it lost, starting with you.